our stock of the day. It is Cisco. It did report overnight our time, and the stock ended up around 20% higher in after-hours trade, to be up some 32% since the beginning of the year. Delivering a record third quarter result, beating expectations on revenue and EPS. Revenue at $15.8 billion, that's up 12% year on year. EPS at $1.06, that's up 1.9%. Raised its forward guidance revenue between $62.8 and $63 billion. The company saying it was making strategic investments in silicon, optics, security, and employees' use of AI across the company as it reduces some roles. In fact, to that point, it is undergoing significant job cuts there. As announced, 5% of the workforce will be cut. That's around 4,000 workers as it shifts more resources into AI infrastructure. And in fact, Cisco has taken some, just in terms of what's ahead, $5.3 billion in AI infrastructure orders from the hyperscalers so far this fiscal year, raising its full year order expectation to $9 billion from $5 billion previously. Mark, what do you think of that result?
It's an extraordinarily good result, basically. So, I mean, Cisco for many years was kind of the pin-up boy for the tech wreck or the tech bubble back in 01. I think it took about 17 years to get back to its high in 01, which was, you're a very patient shareholder if you've had them for 25 years. But their network orders jumped by 50%. Their data center orders and switching rose by 40% as well. The CFO in the earnings call said essentially they could see $6 billion next year increase in hyperscaler orders via revenue. And look, these guys were always going to be, a beneficiary, and I'm surprised it's only up 32% for the year. But obviously it's a massive spike after market. And I think it's probably scars from the past that people haven't been, there'd be some long-term shareholders that would, have a little bit of PTSD on this stock, I think, overall. But you've got the likes of, something like Vertiv, which was my Advent pick. It's up like 200% in 2026, and it's sort of similar, but it's humidity management, cooling management, power management, things like that. So all of these these building blocks of the data centers, particularly, and everything is in shortage. So the backlog of orders, as long as it stays there, this will play out over a multi-year time frame. I think at up 20% in the aftermarket, I think the horse is probably bolted for now. Like I would have been, if we'd had the call yesterday, I might be, we might have rolled the dice sort of buying into earnings. Because the good thing about the US market is, and our clients have definitely found, they're just an inherently bullish people, the Americans, and you get a good result, it actually goes up, as opposed to the ASX is a little bit more dicey. So. And look, forward PE's only around the 20s mark after this result. So it's not like wildly expensive, but I'd probably prefer to buy on dips. So after that move in the aftermarket, I'd probably say it's a hold at this stage, and that's more, around the 20% is probably all we would have been necessarily looking for immediately. And I am concerned with those inflation numbers and consumer sentiment numbers, which were the worst in recorded since 1952. I think the economy is going to start to really, the economic numbers and the inflation numbers are going to start to drag on the market. So I don't want to be buying highs and taking too much risk at the top of the market.
All right, so a hold from you, Elfreda. What would you do with it?
Well, I have to say, I think overall it's not a stock that we currently own, but it definitely is one of those beneficiaries of this whole cycle that we're currently in. As Mark said, it is obviously there's a shortage of whatever is needed for this data center boom. The hyperscalers continue to spend. For us, if we take a look at our overall portfolio, we like to be diversified and limit the amount of the portfolio that we allocate towards AI. So some of the stocks that we have that also play in that same space as Cisco, because we believe in those underlying constructive structural trends being positive for these players, would be stocks like an ABB, We have a whole range of other AI stocks that we can potentially discuss, but it is a high quality company. We just prefer some of the other players within that space.
Yep.
I agree, it has really not run up a lot, so there could be more in this one over the next while, definitely, but I would say be wary of massive multiple re-ratings if you're not going to see the earnings come through as well.
All right, well, there are other opportunities which we're going to touch on later in the show. Perhaps you are there. So if you did own this stock, would you hold it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to call that a double hold then for the stock of the day. Cisco,